Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home. Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I'm really excited to talk to you about something cool that's just happened to me in my life that really showed me that we have to stop letting limiting beliefs stop us from living. So that's my topic for today. And before I get into it, I want to welcome you, if you're here for the first time, to the Heal Your Hunger Show. Wow, and yay, and congrats. I'm glad you're here. You know, this is where we talk about the underlying causes of emotional eating, including our limiting beliefs, our untrue things we say about ourselves and to ourselves. So really important to dig into this. And also all the other subtleties of how we think, what we believe, how we act, decisions we make, ways that we interact in the world and with other people. All these things compound and they create the cravings that we have for food and for ooey gooey chewy foods and for just diving in a hole of isolation with our favorite foods. You know, that does not just happen. It happens on account of the ways that we live and decisions that we make around our living and our thinking. So we got to get into it. You know, enough of the diets, enough of talking about ketones and calories and fitness and all this kind of thing. I know you know about that stuff. So, I mean, I'm just going to go on the basis of assuming that you've done your research on, you know, the best ways to eat and the best food plans. And you've probably tried a lot of them. So I know you know about that stuff, but that's not getting you where you want to go. That's not helping you really make peace with food and have a healthier relationship with food. So the stuff we talk about here does, and that's why I'm so glad that you're here. Now, if you want to continue the conversation, I am recording this from the Secret Sauce group. And you go to Facebook, you type in Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating, ask to join, and bam, you're in, and we're happy to have you join us in the conversation and the support to overcome emotional eating. So on with the show. Really excited about this one because I've got some cool things happening in my life. So this topic of letting limiting beliefs, that's a bit of a tongue twister, stop us from living, I think is so important for emotional eaters because we do let limiting beliefs stop us from living. And I'm an offender for sure. You know, when I was growing up, I was fat. You know, many of you who follow me know that I was a fat girl, and I hated being fat. It was very, very painful, and I was fatter than my friends. And so I just had this belief. I had friends who were very athletic. They were thin, they were strong, they were like active, and they played soccer and sports, and they were just active, whereas I was not so active. I mean, I rode my bike. I'll get back to that later. But I didn't see myself as athletic. And I had one friend, Molly McGregor, who's a doll. I love her to this day. We're still friends. Facebook actually reconnected us after being out of each other's lives for decades. So thank you, Facebook. And basically, she was a major jock, so athletic. And so she would do this thing, which was highly annoying, where she would, you know, we'd be in town, like headed back to her house. She lived just on the border of town. And she'd say, I'll race you to the end of the driveway, or I'll race you to the end of the road. And I stupidly would say, okay. And she'd always win. So I'd be running and she'd just take off like a bat out of hell, and she would win every single time. And I would feel bad and like a loser, like a fat loser, which is exactly kind of probably what I said to myself, you know, and it was a setup all the time for me to feel bad. Not that that was her intention. I mean, she probably had an idea she'd win, and it felt good to her, felt really bad to me. So my self-image growing up was one of not being athletic, not being fast on my feet, you know, and just not being that, you know, that jock, that person who can do anything and pick up a ball and throw it and just, and race somebody to the end of the street. So I grew up having this sense that I'm not a jock, I'm not athletic, and I kind of was more of an artsy person, hung out with more artsy, fartsy people. But when I went to high school, some of that changed. I was still overweight. I got even more, the more I got into adolescence, the more I gained weight. So I was, by the end of my freshman year in high school, I was very overweight, at least 50 pounds. And anyway, but in high school, I went to this private school where they forced you to exercise and actually do a sport. So before that, it was optional, middle school, whatever. You could choose theater, you could do sports or do none of it and, go home and watch TV. Didn't matter. There was public school and there was no requirements. Whereas in my private school, I was required to do a sport. And thank goodness for that, because I discovered in high school that, wow, I'm actually athletic. Because I was forced to do sports. I played field hockey in the fall and I played basketball. Basketball, we can just forget about. We can just wash that off the slate. I was terrible at it. When somebody threw me the ball, I'd jump up and down with it. Like I got so nervous. It was very anxiety reducing, and I would jump up and down, and then the refs would call me for traveling. And then they would joke later. I would catch the refs actually imitating me because it was so funny that I would get excited and jump up and down, which you're not supposed to do clearly in basketball. So basketball was a wash, but field hockey in the fall and lacrosse in the spring. And because I didn't like to exercise, I wasn't a jock for sure. What I did is I kind of wussied out and I chose to be a goalie. So I played goalie in field hockey and lacrosse. And this was, because I didn't like to exercise, because I was overweight, because I didn't feel like I could keep up with other people, I played goalie. Okay, so yeah, I wussed out a little bit there, but I was a really good goalie. Okay, I have great hand-eye coordination, and I could, in field hockey, I could literally and good reflexes. I could lift my stick up. Somebody would like shoot a ball at me standing in front of the goal. I could lift my field hockey stick up, and I would stop the ball with my stick. Like I wouldn't even be looking. I'd just stick my stick up and I would stop the ball. And it was amazing to me. And I could stop it with my hands too. I had these padded gloves. So I discovered in high school that I was athletic, that I have a strong body, that I'm actually good and coordinated. I'm not a klutz. And so that was so good for me. And that helped me kind of make peace a little bit with myself and my self-image, but not fully. So the fact that I was still overweight, the fact that I would waddle around the field when we had to jog around the field, I didn't like to run. That's why I chose to hang out in the goal. I just thought that would be an easier way to go. Turns out it was not. I had welts all over my body in lacrosse from that hard rubber ball being hit at me, and it would get stuck in between my padding, and I would literally, my legs would be black and blue. It was so painful. So, bad call on that one. And yet I discovered I had good hand-eye coordination, and I was actually quite athletic, apart from not being able to jog or run very fast. I was asthmatic. I had asthma, and it was just hard for me, besides the fact that I was overweight. So, my self-image in high school improved somewhat on this physical, issue that I realized I am athletic, my body's strong, and that helped me tremendously. Not that I went out and did a bunch of sports, because I didn't. I did some. I liked tennis for sure. My point here is that it's been an evolution of coming to terms with my body and having a different self-concept. And what's happened more recently is I've gotten an upgrade in my self-concept, and I've also had to face my self-concept. So about 7 or 8 years ago, I started doing, I was in my 40s and I thought, I've got to do something. I just walked up until, my whole life, I mostly just walked, played a little tennis. But, in my 40s, I'm like, I got to do something to strengthen my bones. And thankfully, I wasn't trying to exercise for the purpose of losing weight. I lost weight by dealing with the underlying causes of my emotional eating. And I was thin. My whole adult life, I've been thin on account of the help I got to go deeper and root out, those deeper causes. So that enabled me to not have to overeat one day at a time. Thank you, God. But still, this idea of exercising, it was something that came into my life in my 40s when I realized I needed to strengthen my bones. I didn't want to have osteoporosis. So I started exercising by going to a bar class. It was bar method. And if you work at the bar, you work all the muscles in your body. And it was fantastic and really hard at first, but I did it. And again, when I did it, it was hard. It was not a lot of jumping up and down, because I don't really like that so much. But it was core training. And as I did it, and as my body got stronger, it helped increase my self-image. It helped up-level my self-image, and realizing I am athletic, my body is strong, and I'm not sort of outside the fray on this. And that just helped me so much, because I've, my whole life needed to recover this self-image of the little fat girl who couldn't race Molly McGregor down the street, without losing. So the bar method class was wonderful for me. Now, more recently, I was dating somebody who went to Planet Fitness, and I think I did a podcast on this, and I went to Planet Fitness with him, and I just about had a heart attack, because I'm not a gym rat. I'm not a gym person. And again, the reason why I say that is because I always felt like gyms were for thin people who looked great in spandex, even though I was a thin person who looked, halfway decent in spandex. Not in my head. I didn't, in my head, I was thinking, that I'm not one of those people. I'm not that. So I went to this gym, and I was like having heart palpitations, like, oh my God. Turns out Planet Fitness is awesome. They're all about non-judgment, and all sizes are welcome. And even though, again, I looked like I fit in with those, people in spandex, it's not what my I did not have the self-confidence to be in a gym, and it helped me to go there and kind of get over that, up-leveling my self-concept a little bit more as I did. So next is up to now, where I'm dating somebody who is a cyclist, and the other guy was a cyclist too. Actually, he bicycled all the way across the country, but on his own. But this new guy literally used to cycle. He used to make his living as a cyclist. He was on a pro team and literally got a salary for cycling in competitions. And so this guy's really into it, and he bicycles every day, and he goes out and he puts on his Spider-Man suit. That's what I call it. So he looks like Spider-Man, with the shoes and the, all the get up. So he goes out and cycles every day. Well, when we first met, and we met on an online dating app, at OKC, in case anybody's like, I wonder what dating app she met him on. That's what it was, OkCupid. And he was in Maine, and I was in Los Angeles, and I learned about his life as a cyclist, and I said straight up, right out there in front of everything else that we were going to talk about, I said, just so you know, that's not me. I made it very clear that I'm not a jock. I'm not a jock. Don't expect me to be a cyclist. Just want to make that very clear, because if that's a deal breaker, better it now. And he didn't seem to care, and he wanted to date me. And so we started to date, and he would go on his rides. We'd be together if he was visiting me in Los Angeles. He was moving to LA, and when he was staying with me, he would go out on his bike rides, and I'd be like, isn't that nice? And thank goodness he doesn't care that I don't go with him, because he really didn't. And he actually kind of liked the fact that I wasn't this hard jock. He said, the women I've dated who have been jocks have been, super intense about it. And there's, they lacked kind of a softness or a femininity that, I appreciate about you. So not that women jocks can't be feminine, but the ones he dated weren't so much. And so he liked my feminineness, and we were getting along well, like super fine, without me bicycling. And I thought I was just all set with that. But when we came to Maine, and he'd go out on these bike rides out on Cape Elizabeth, which is this beautiful place surrounded by water, beautiful trees, and old houses, and just, especially as summer came on, so beautiful. I started to envy him, and I'd be like, I want to go cycling through there. I want to see all that countryside. And so I let him know I'd like to try cycling. So last Saturday, I went and bought a bike with his, well, I actually had ordered it a month before with his help, his expertise. He knows all about this stuff. He's got a bike shop he's been going to for over 20 years. So knows the owner and, you know, just kind of knows his way around. And so I ordered a good bike and picked it up on Saturday and went for my first ride on Saturday. I've been for a ride ever since. Every morning we've been going out on these rides. And I have to tell you, I've been once again up against my old self-concept. My self-concept of this is not me. I'm not a jock. I'm not a hard body for sure, you know, and I don't belong in this scene. And I have to tell you, bikers, you know, cyclists, it's a scene. Like they're passionate, you know, if not fanatical about their cycling. And there's all these kind of, you know, there's all kinds of ways of being and ways of being and not being, you know. I'm like, when I picked up my bike, I'm like, do I get a kickstand? You know, and the owner is standing there. He's like, no, you don't, no kickstands on this bike. No. He sort of laid down the law. Like that was almost offensive. I think I did offend him when I asked for a kickstand. So apparently bikers or cyclists do, you know, they're too cool for kickstands, which, you know, whatever. I think that's silly, but I know there's a reason for it. I'm sure it, you know, slows you down or whatever. It's just not, you know, it's not what they do. So I learned and I'm learning, but the point is, I had to, you know, really take a look at the fact that I had some of these limiting beliefs coming up and I'm just like, I'm not in, like, I don't belong in that club. I'm not that. I might not even make it up a hill. I may have to walk my bike up the hill. I don't know how I'm going to handle hills. And I don't know. I just don't know how this is going to work. And it was kind of daunting for me. And fortunately, my guy was super encouraging. You know, he's been a coach before, so he coached me. He's really great as a coach and shows me what gears to shift when, and he knows the roads in Cape Elizabeth, so he knows exactly where we're going and where to turn, and he gives me plenty of notice. And so it's actually been really, really fun, and frankly has opened up a whole new world for me, because I am getting to learn more about my body and accept once again that I am athletic and I have a strong body. And we were just talking about this in one of our coaching calls, and one of my clients was saying this, and it was so beautiful. She was swimming and discovering, you know, just the beautiful strength of her body and affirming it. Instead of looking at all the negativity about the fat that she's carrying, you know, she's like, no, I'm going to focus on the strength and the power of my body. It was so inspiring. And that's how I feel now too. Like I'm really discovering that about myself and discovering the strength of my body and once again, up leveling my self-concept. So no, I might not be a fanatical biker. I might just leave that to my boyfriend. But I can definitely join in the experience of cycling, experiencing the beauty in the countryside of Maine. I'm actually going to be traveling in a little bit to France and England with him. And we're going to cycle in the countryside in France and England. So, you know, it's pretty exciting. And it's all happening because I was willing to set aside the negative thoughts I had about my body and about not being able to do it, and my fears, you know, that I was going to disappoint him, or, you know, I was really going to blow it in some way, and just be open. Just be open to a new experience, regardless of what my head had to say about it. So I didn't listen to my head. And nowadays, that's more important than ever, you know, to just, you know, when I have those negative thoughts, it's like, thanks for sharing, but I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try it out and see what happens. And I have, and I didn't think I'd be able to go 2 days in a row. You know, it's been 5 days in a row now, and it's so enjoyable. And, you know, I'm dressed before he is, saying, you know, you ready? I'm so excited. So it's just really sweet. And I'm just here to say that, we all have limiting beliefs. We all have that self-concept, especially if you have been overweight. You've lived in a, overweight body for a long time, and you've decided there's things you can't do. And I understand if you have a lot of weight on you and it does actually prohibit you from doing certain things. I know that's a painful experience, and you can turn that around. I promise you, and I'm here for you if you want to explore that together. But whatever, is going through your mind, just know that you don't have to listen. You don't have to listen. You just need to take the action. We don't think our way into right action. We act our way into right thinking. And every time you take a bold step and do something that your head's telling you can't do, or you don't deserve to do, or you're not worthy of doing, I promise you, you will bust through that limiting belief. And as you lose weight, my clients were losing weight, they're so afraid of blowing it. They're so afraid they're just going to go right back to what they've done before, because they were on the diet path and they would go back to what they've done before. But, they're learning a new way of going underneath, and dealing with the underlying causes, so they don't have to blow it. They don't have to go back up the scale. But they have to bust through those limiting beliefs by taking one foot in front of the other and just doing it anyway, taking the action anyway. And that's what I'm doing right now on my bike. I can't wait to tell you about my rides overseas. I'm really, really excited about it. One day at a time, one one foot in front of the other, literally, on the bike as I pedal. And yeah, don't let those limiting beliefs stop you from living, because it's all about breaking out of that and starting to live a better life, a life you definitely deserve. So thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going in the Secret Sauce group. Please comment below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. What ways have you been letting limiting beliefs stop you? What ways are you breaking out of those limiting beliefs? Let's have a conversation about it. Thanks so much. I love you so much. And I'll see you in the next show. Take care.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.